relationship. Like when I share this with people, they're blown away. I'm like, you're not actually in a relationship with your partner. Like, well, what do you mean? We've been. I'm getting closer to this trip to the woods.
Everybody loves Peter Crone.
You're good. Got that? Got that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully
it's a beautiful
said.
place to be because people think I'm really cool, you know. But that wouldn't matter if they thought I was cool or not.
Okay, now that can sound weird. But like, how we doing? My name is Vish.
And I'm Nina.
And today, we will be reacting to...
Peter Crone's view on how to be more confident.
Let's get into it.
I feel like one of the most worthwhile skill sets you can develop in life is just your ability to listen, which comes when you're present, not operating these future-based propositions that we just talked about.
Yeah.
How have you cultivated that in your life? Because obviously you're very good at it.
I already
Thank
love
you.
it.
Not to keep blowing smoke up your ass, but
I'm getting closer to this trip to the woods.
Everybody loves Peter Crone.
You're good.
I discovered
I would
for you.
say it's not so much what I cultivated, but it's the absence of something, right? So most people, because cultivation has the underlying sort of implication that it's something I've worked on. And I'd actually say it's the dissolution of something, which was the idea that I was worried about what people think about me. So in the absence of former Peter, like who I thought I was, who I was in my own view of myself as inadequate or self-conscious.
Anxiety is something that I used to really struggle with. I wasn't sure if I would ever get through it.
I remember having anxiety and thinking that it was going to last literally forever. I used to have panic attacks, racing thoughts, and super uncomfortable physical symptoms.
Learn the 3 simple steps that we took to get through anxiety in the link in the description down below.
We look forward to seeing you there.
Then I'm just with you, right? And that's love, right? To me, like I equate listening to love. And why most people can't listen is because they're still subtly or sometimes quite significantly in a place of being so self-aware because they're scared. Right? Think about a kid who's been reprimanded one too many times, then their ability to listen to what their parents saying is so compromised, or it can equally become incredibly vigilant, right? Because they're now so petrified that they don't want to get in trouble, that they're like, okay, what are they about to do or say? Like they are just so aware of their surroundings to the point of like, it's actually a sickness. Yeah. Like the OCD kind of stuff that goes on out there for a lot of people, because they're in such a fight or flight mode. So I would say my listening was the byproduct of the disintegration or the dissolution of the idea that there was anything for me to survive. Got that? Got that? Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
Beautifully
beautiful
said.
place to be, because it's not to say that, like, because people are like, well, how come you're just so at peace on a stage, or like you're just such a great orator or a great public speaker? And I'm like, well, I wasn't always there. Like it was the absence of me that led to that. It wasn't that I became that. It was the part of me that was previously concerned of like, am I going to do a good job? Will I be funny? Will they like what I say? Am I saying the right thing? Am I going to get the job? Will I get the, whatever it is that was
Dissolution.
a concern or a perceived threat was actually the obstacle to just self-expression.
Yeah.
And this is where I think kids are so beautiful, especially when they're young. You put like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, 1.5-year-old in a room full of like super successful, brilliant, articulate, talented adults who are like 40 years plus. The kid's going to get all the attention because everybody else is their airs and graces and their ambassadors are having the conversations like, oh my gosh, did you follow the stock market? And like, isn't it awful what's happening over in, Ukraine or what? Like these conversations, which really underneath it, there's just somebody who just wants to say, you know what, I'm just really struggling at home right now. It's like my kids don't listen to me. Like I think I'm going to get divorced. And it's like, whoa, like, it's like, there's an authenticity that gets someone's attention. Whereas most people are like playing this game of pretense, right? Like it's like, who do I have to be in order to like feel, going back to that sense of belonging or worth? And so now you've lost relatability. You're not actually being real. And so there isn't a relationship. Like when I share this with people, they're blown away. I'm like, you're not actually in a relationship with your partner. Like, well, what do you mean? We've been together 15 years. I'm like, no, you've had the form of it, but you don't relate to each other. So in the absence of the idea of a part of us that feels the needs to survive, garner love or belonging or a sense of worth, once that's dissolved, then all you're left with is presence. And it's like, I'm here with you. And you didn't send me one question. I didn't know what this conversation was going to be. And so far, I feel like It'd been pretty decent responses. So like I didn't prepare. Now, Peter of Young, early 20s, coming out of college, I might have been like, hey, can you send me some of the questions? Because what I would have wanted to do is have good answers. Why? Because I want to make sure that people think I'm really cool, But that wouldn't matter if they thought I was cool or not. Even if they did, I'd still be in a state of suffering because I didn't think I was. And that's why I'm trying to garner it from somebody else.
That was interesting. What'd you think, Nina?
Peter Crone has such a gift of being able to articulate and communicate things in such a beautiful way. And I think that's what makes him so captivating to listen to, because every word he chooses is spoken with such clarity. And it's the same thing with so many other spiritual teachers that we've listened to, where that clarity that they embody is demonstrated through something as simple as language, speaking. And I imagine he's somebody that probably writes a lot too. I had 2 friends of mine who introduced me to him, and I didn't know about him either. Like very recently they told me about him, and I remember the first thing I thought was, what a beautiful speaker, he must be a writer.
Yeah.
Because to be able to understand these spiritual, or whatever you want to call it, concepts is one thing, but to be able to actually articulate them in a way that's as powerful as he does it is another gift.
I love that last thing you mentioned with him being such a great speaker and connecting that to writing. I was actually speaking of Parth yesterday, my really good friend, and he said something about how great speakers are great writers and great writers are great readers. So it's really cool to see how they all connect, right? Because even, writing is one thing, but reading is another thing, right? And it all connects together to make you ultimately that great speaker. And I fully agree. He speaks so well, so calm, so clear, and every word he says is so conscious in nature. It's something I'm personally trying to work on in terms of making every word more intentional and more useful. It's so normal, right, for the humanness for us to just, use filler words. Even, for example, just now, I just caught myself, self-awareness. I said, right? Just all these words, it reflects that inner consciousness, and just the way he speaks itself, to me, represents the inner clarity that he has. And then, like, diving into the actual, again, content of what he was saying, I loved what he was saying in the beginning, because when André asked him something about how did you become this or become that, he was like, no, it's not something that you become. It's something that you almost let go of, right? These are all things that we tend to condition ourselves with. So it's not about conditioning ourselves even more, but it's actually unconditioning ourselves, right? That baby he described in that big business room meeting example, the baby is so pure, the baby is so raw, the baby is so real, so authentic, right? And he just screams or cries and shouts or does whatever, but he's just being himself, truly, right? Now these business people, to talk about all these different wars and conflicts in the stock market, this all comes from conditioning. So it's all acquired stuff, right? So what's really fascinating with the way he broke that down was that he's actually saying that it's not something I become, it's something that you unbecome.
And I think, speaking about Peter Crone's ability to speak, I doubt he tried to use words intentionally, but it's like when you're going through that dissolving process, or you've learned how to dissolve so much of what is not you, I imagine naturally in the process, it comes out in every other way, through your language, through the way that you communicate with others, through the way that you be.
Absolutely. I will say, just like another sort of devil's advocate point here, and I'm sure he probably does see it the same way, but just something I took away a little differently is that just because you're in a room full of people talking about all these like surface level things, like, oh, how is the weather, yada, yada, yada. I know it's so common nowadays for people to be like, oh, that's such a surface level thing to talk about, and such a conditioned thing to talk about, right? Like, what's the war in Africa looking like right now? But to me, I feel like it's not about what you say, but it's how you say what you say. So even just saying, oh, how is the weather today? Like, that itself is just a a bridge to connect with someone. I mean, truly, if we were all woke and like actually enlightened, I'm sure we could all be in a room and just not look at each other and just like know each other without having to speak. So obviously we all have at least some level of humanness, right? That's still there. And so, you know, naturally we start some sort of conversation off like, oh, I like your pen, I like your shirt, I like your whatever. And it can sound silly, but the way you say that, like even just, I like your shirt, like tell me more about, that itself can sound a little maybe frantic and unconscious, but even just saying the same thing in a more conscious way, like, I like that shirt. Okay, now that can sound weird. But like, I just realized I'm sounding a little funny now with how I'm describing what I'm saying. But does that make sense, what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter what you're saying, but it's how you say what you say. Because to me, the way he described that example is that like you almost have to be super authentic and honest about stuff, right? Like talking about how you're getting divorced. I think that's not really appropriate for like, let's just say certain business meetings, for example, right? Like
I guess it depends like what context it was.
Sure, yes, the context matters, but at the same time, I feel like there's a place for everything, right?
So you're saying basically 100% authenticity maybe is not always a requirement.
No, what I'm saying is being 100% authentic doesn't require you to share every detail about your life at every point and every second. Like true authenticity, we all know this, is just the silence. Back to Osho, right? It's like there's a true silence and nothingness that connects all of us together. So even talking about that divorce or your kid or whatever, even that is a very surface level thing compared to what's really you.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. Love to ask Peter Crone that.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm gonna reflect on that one.
Absolutely. Let us know what you think about what we just discussed, because obviously we have some questions and some maybe slightly different views on what Peter Crone said. So let us know what you think about our insights down below. Feel free to also comment down below any other videos or people you want us to react to down below.
Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.